What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing Chapter 3, Season 3, so I'm going to be going over what I liked about this season, what I didn't like about this season, what I would do differently, and giving it an overall ranking out of 10. If you guys do enjoy this video, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, comment down below what you thought of Chapter 3, Season 3. Like I just said, what did you enjoy about the season, what did you not like about the season, and what would you give this season out of 10? I'm going to start off with the map changes because I feel like map changes are one of the most important things when it comes to a Fortnite season. Oftentimes, I kind of remember seasons based on the map changes that happened, and I tend to care more about the map than the loot pool because it's pretty rare that weapons get added that actually matter, but we'll get to that when I get to the items. So the map changes this season, we actually got a bunch. We got Reality Falls, an entire biome on the left side of the map. Also, Greasy Grove got changed a bit, Fortress got changed a bit, and Mid-Map got changed a bit from what it was last season. We got Rave Cave replacing Command Cavern. We got the Block 2.0 at Tilted Towers, which I will get to later on. And we got 6 POIs changed by the Reality Tree over the course of the season. So, Logjam, Butter Barn, Sleepy Sound, Condo Canyon, the Shrine, I think it was called Shuttered Shrines, the Indiana Jones area essentially, got changed by the Reality Tree, and then also Daily Bugle got changed by the Reality Tree and became Lazy Lagoon. So as far as map changes go, this season had a bunch, but they kind of felt underwhelming after a while because the way that the map changes happened with the Reality Tree changing the POI, I think was really cool, but it kind of got old after a while, and a lot of the POIs didn't change too much. So like Logjam and Butter Barn changed a lot, and Daily Bugle changed a good amount, becoming Lazy Lagoon, but Sleepy Sound and Condo Canyon, they just changed the houses section of those POIs to different themed houses. So if you liked those POIs already, you were probably going to continue to like them with the changes they made. And if you didn't like those POIs, you probably weren't going to change your opinion on them. They didn't really feel new. It was like they put a new coat of paint over the POI, essentially. And then Shuttered Shrines was basically the same thing. If you didn't like that temple area before, you probably weren't going to enjoy it very much. And it was mainly just there to like house the Indiana Jones like challenges, the relic I believe it is called, that you had to get to unlock Indiana Jones. So we did get a lot of map changes this season, more so than usual, so I do like give Epic credit there. Not every map change is going to be something that you personally enjoy, and that's kind of the risk with map changes. It is better to have more map changes, in my opinion, that some of them you don't like, than just have a really stagnant stale map where nothing changes. And then the Block 2.0 at Tilted was underwhelming for me because the Block was one of my favorite POIs ever. If you didn't play back in the day, a quick rundown, the Block was just an entire POI that would be changed week to week based on what people made in creative and what Epic selected to be the block that 1 week. So 1 week it might be an abandoned factory, the next week it might be like a Honey I Shrunk the Kid style toy box, and then the week after that it might be like a pirate themed location. It would be something totally different each time. And that's kind of what I was looking forward to. But with Tilted Block, they only changed a few buildings. And from what I heard, the people who created those buildings were very limited on what they could actually do. Like they had to make, I think, a restaurant, an apartment, and then I don't know what the other one was. But it wasn't like they had free creative control. And it wasn't like the POI changed that much. And it didn't change week to week because we had the Tilted Block voting. And then it just stayed that for the remainder. So it is cool, I guess, but it's different from what I had anticipated. And I've actually seen people saying they think Greasy Grove is going to be the Block 2.0 location selected for next season since it was destroyed by the Reality Tree to an extent. It'll be interesting to see if that ends up coming true and if Greasy ends up changing next season. So as far as map changes go, I think this was definitely an above average season. It did get stale, but that's fine. I think it was a good mechanic having the tree change the map over time, and there was something to look forward to most of the time when it came to map changes, so they get a lot of credit there for me. The items this season are interesting because there was a lot of items added this season, actually. I've seen people say there wasn't very much added. At the start of the season, we got the Hammer AR, the DMR, and the 2-shot shotgun. The 2-shot shotgun was really bad at launch. They've buffed it since then. It's quite good in zero build now, but I still don't want to ever use it in build mode. The DMR isn't my favorite weapon, but I know a lot of people really enjoy using this weapon. I think the Hammer AR is a fine fully automatic assault rifle. Like as far as third-person bloom ARs go, the Hammer AR is really, really good. We ended up getting the Combat AR unvaulted, another really good assault rifle. We got the Prime shotgun, which is really good. I think the Prime is my most used shotgun in build mode since it came out, most likely. So I've used it a bunch. The grapple glove is a perfect item. So we had the Spider-Man web slinger in chapter 3 season 1, and it was pretty OP because you could just swing to height and pump people while you were in the sky and then just like build on them, and it was really annoying to deal with in build fights. But one of the main changes they made with the grapple glove is you can't shoot until you land, so it completely negated that cheesy aspect of the Spider-Man web slinger. Also, now it has only 30 uses, so this was like a overpowered mythic that they had in the game in chapter 3 season 1, and they took it and made it a more balanced item that fits the game perfectly, and in my opinion is just like perfect mobility. You can use the grapple glove to travel around the map and push people, but you can't just use the grapple glove to like completely decide a fight isn't happening like you can something like the Rift to go, Nimbus Cloud, or Shockwave. So I think the grapple glove is perfect. So as far as items go, I feel like the season was really, really good. There was some questionable items added, like the Ripsaw launcher, the Charge SMG, crash pads, which are a good item, but we have so many other mobility items in the game right now that crash pads were really not necessary, I think. Boogie bombs are really overpowered in zero build, and I don't think they should be in the game. The revolver, I don't know why that's in the game. So like they added so many items to the game this season that the loot pool became so large that RNG just felt way out of hand. You know, the more items there are in the game, the less likely it is you'll get the item you actually want. And when there's a lot of items occupying the weapon slot in the chest and the like alternate slot in the chest, so like if you guys didn't know this, chests drop one weapon guaranteed, ammo for that weapon type, and then a heal or like utility slot item, so like shield, mobility, grenades, things of that nature. And when you have so many things in the loot pool, it gets more difficult to get weapons that you actually want to use and get shield items that you can use off spawn. So you might land on a chest and get like a Charge SMG and crash pads, and then you have to fight somebody off spawn who got like a hammer AR and mini shields out of their chest. Like it's not going to work out for you. So early game RNG feels, you know, really bad. And towards the end of this season, this wasn't a problem for most of the season, but it's a more towards the end of season problem. And then the two main new mechanics they added this season were the riding of animals, which I actually think is fine. I think this is like perfect mobility. Like I was talking about before, the grapple glove. You can use this to travel around the map, but you can't just decide a fight isn't happening because you're on a wolf. And then also they had the reality tree plants, which were really overpowered at the start of the season, but they've been balanced appropriately. And it's still like a good source of loot, but it's not too overpowered. So I don't know. The most questionable thing about those two aspects, the map changes, the mechanics, and the loot pool, is just that the loot pool got too large towards the end of the season, and that was really compounded or like made worse by the past two wild weeks we've had. The Shadow of the Phantasm wild week and the Fire wild week just took an already really saturated loot pool and just made it so much more worse, because with the Shadow week we had 4 items unvaulted. With the Fire week I think we have 2 or 3. Not very many. Yeah, 3. So we had the Chug Cannon, the Fire Bow, and the Dragon's Breath Shotgun. But the Fire Bow spawns so much that it's like everything you find off spawn is the Fire Bow. So the past 2 weeks, these wild weeks have not been what I enjoyed at all. So the main knock against this season so far is that the loot pool is a little just too saturated, and we'll get to that later on in the video. The next thing I want to talk about is going to be the No Sweat Summer event, because there was a lot of hype and excitement for this, and I feel like it just killed any momentum that the season had. It turned out that the No Sweat Summer event was pretty much nothing. They made a few map changes on the far right beach side of the map towards the Foundation statue, but none of these were really relevant map changes in my opinion. It wasn't really going to be a spot that you would land. And the only items they added for the No Sweat Summer, I believe, were ice cream cones and 0-point fish in the coolers. And the ice cream cones were pretty irrelevant. I don't know a single person who enjoyed using them. 0-point fish are okay, but again, it's another thing that people don't really use. So having the kind of be the mid-season event type thing be pretty much nothing, I feel like killed any sort of momentum or hype that the season had. Because, you know, when a season comes out, the hype and excitement is really high, and then it just kind of steadily goes down over time. And I feel like the No Sweat Summer event was kind of meant to like rebound that and build some hype back up. But instead, it just made that decline far worse, in my opinion. And this happened around the same time that Epic were going on break. So I believe they went on break from August or July 23rd until August 7th. So about like 2 weeks or so. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with Epic taking a break. I'm not going to complain about that. There can be no updates for a little bit, and that can be fine. But what really mattered was that there was no updates for essentially 3 weeks. The last update before they went on break was the 21st. of July. And then the first update after they had came back was August 15th. So the No Sweat Summer event was kind of meant to like fill that time where Epic were on break and there wasn't going to be any updates for the game, but instead it just added nothing. And this is when people started really complaining about Chapter 3, Season 3 being really boring and stale. That is like far and away the biggest complaint I've heard about this season, is just that it's boring. And I feel like the No Sweat Summer event really is not necessarily the cause of it maybe, but like it not working or not being a good event is really what like drove that feeling home, I feel like. And if they had a summer event like previous summer events where there was like 14 days of summer where each day there was a different weapon unvaulted for that day, so you got 2 weeks of weapons, but the loot pool wasn't really griefed because when one weapon came out, the other one from the previous day was vaulted. That added so much content to the game in Season 9. I believe they also did a different LTM every day. So it wasn't like they had to make new content every day. They were just recycling old content. And that had happened for like several summer events or winter events, I feel like. I don't know why they didn't do something like that for this summer, and instead they chose to do nothing. I feel like there's probably more they had planned for the summer event that just for some reason had to be scrapped last second because the kind of leading theory that a lot of people in the community have is that there was something wrong with the update, and so they just cut all the content out. That way there wouldn't be any bugs or anything while they were gone. And, you know, maybe not having any content for 3 weeks is worse, or better, I mean, than having a super buggy game for 3 weeks. So the No Sweat Summer event is a huge, like, negative for this event. And then we got the Dragon Ball Z update, which this really saved the season for a lot of people. I feel like the most memorable part of this season, when people talk about this season, like a year from now or a few months from now, it's going to be the Dragon Ball Z stuff. So they added the Nimbus Glider, the Kamehameha, and then the Dragon Ball Z skins. And only 2 items really isn't that big of a deal, but they both changed the game pretty significantly. The Nimbus Glider itself is a reskinned Witch's Broom, so we'll likely get it back next month for Fortnitemares. But this was an update that a lot of people liked, and this really saved the season for a lot of people. And I feel like if the season ended at the end of the Dragon Ball Z event, this season would have been remembered more fondly. So the Dragon Ball Z event ended August 30th. It's now September 12th as I record this, so we've been 12 days since then. The Dragon Ball Z items are still in the game for some reason. I don't really mind it, it's whatever. But it's bizarre to end the Dragon Ball Z event and then just have 2 weeks of like, or 2 or 3 weeks of nothingness before the next season. And what they decided to fill the time with was Wild Weeks. I'm not a fan of Wild Weeks at all. I'll maybe get into that in a future video, but I feel like Wild Weeks should just be like, no, just do LTMs instead. I feel like if they, instead of making Wild Weeks, they made LTMs, they could make the game mode so much more unique without griefing the normal game for a week, but that's a topic for a future video. But yeah, the biggest problem with this season, I feel like, was just like the momentum it had, how unique and stale it felt, and like those two things are kind of intertwined, you know. If the season was shorter, the fact that the No Sweat Summer event was nothing wouldn't have mattered as much. The fact that the loot pool was super saturated wouldn't have mattered as much. Like, those are the two biggest knocks I have against this season. It's just the loot pool was way too saturated, which increased RNG, and then the No Sweat Summer event was kind of meant to be something that would bring some hype back into the game, and it turned out to be nothing. So I feel like if this season was shorter, it would have been a fine season, and it's still not a bad season. It's just not a good one, I feel like. Another thing that we have to talk about is that there's no event for this season, which is unfortunate. I don't know what happened there. I don't know. It's one of those things that I feel like there's not really much speculating about, because Epic knows that we like the events and that the events draw in a lot of, you know, hype and excitement for the game. So I'm sure they would like to do an event. There's probably a reason that they didn't, but not having an event nonetheless is very unfortunate. And with this season being stale and stagnant, not very memorable, I feel like that no event thing just kind of, you know, further emphasizes that. So my final ranking for this season would be a 6.5 out of 10, I think. And a lot of people will look at that and be like, oh my god, that's terrible. But I kind of use a true 1 to 10 scale where 5 is average, you know? 5 is in the middle. 5 is just okay. Anything under 5 is bad. Anything above 5 is good. And so this season is slightly better than average, I would say. There's nothing terrible about this season. There's no like thing that makes me dread getting on like we've had with past seasons, like the mechs or certain loot pools. There's nothing like that. The only knock against this season is just that it's kind of stale and boring, and that it's not as exciting as some past seasons, and that it was a little too long. But Epic's break plays into that. The time where Epic was gone when we didn't get any updates was 25 days. The average Fortnite length of a season in Chapter 1 was 80 days. This season was 105 days. So if you subtract that 25 days from that Epic took a break from the total days this season, it would be at 80 days, and it would be regular length season. So Epic goes on break. That's awesome that they're able to do that and, get a break from the game and hopefully come back and make better content later. I'm not going to, knock that. But yeah, that's this season. It was just a little too long, too stale, not very memorable, not very exciting. The Dragon Ball Z stuff really saved it. I think if the Dragon Ball Z stuff didn't happen, I think a lot of people would just completely forget that this season happened. But let me know in the comments below what you think of this season, how you would rank it, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.